We knocked Brian off. We didn't take him off kicking and screaming. He was willing to go. So that's all right. Mike Bobinski joins me for segment 2. We were talking recruiting, and it is you've got to be part counselor, and there are times when guys just don't come, and you work like crazy, and it doesn't work out. Again, what's your message to coaches, whether it's men's basketball, football, volleyball, and down the line? What do you try to tell them? What's been your message to them about how they go about recruiting, but also dealing with the ups and downs of it?
Sure, I think the reality that in today's world, particularly in the high-profile sports, is that recruiting is hyper-analyzed and hyper-public, which didn't used to be the case.
Yeah.
No one in years gone by, nobody knew had the faintest idea who was or who wasn't involved. So now
you're not mentioning any names here, Gold
no, but everybody becomes fixated on
right.
a prospect in whatever sport it might be, and then that person becomes the holy grail. And if this works, we've arrived. And if it doesn't, oh my gosh, the sky has fallen. The reality is always that you never get all the people that you recruit. That just doesn't work that way. That's fantasy land. And you've got to recruit more people than you have spots for. So you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. The key, and then the age-old axiom is, it's not who you don't get. It's making sure that the ones you do get are good enough to continue success at a high level. I think in our programs, as I look at football, they're recruiting hard against lots of high-profile programs, and they've lost some guys, and they've won some guys. Yeah. And I think Jeff's got a unbelievably balanced approach about that. He understands that we're not going to win. We're going to swing hard at the very best that we can get involved with. And sometimes we'll win those, and sometimes we won't. But we're not going to stop swinging. And I think that's the same thing in basketball and the other higher profile sports. That's just it's just the nature of that business. I mean, it's very competitive. And at the end of the day, young folks get to choose where they go. I mean, they just do. And you can't always tie a logical string through their decision making. That's just sometimes it just works that way.
That can be that way when they're here.
It can be emotion based. It can be based on lots of things. And so you can't always ascribe a hard and fast, firm logic, as I said, logic tree to what happens. It just happens.
We do allow you to ask questions, and at the bottom of the screen there, if you want to ask questions from Mike, we did have a real insightful one here. Does Mike use a fake handle on Knucklehead Central? I'll answer that. He does not. Okay, I promise you he doesn't. He's got better things to do with his time, but it does keep at least us entertained and maybe even a little bit employed. That's a good thing. But it is, I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about how much this has athletics, big time athletics. I mean, you went to one of the great schools, but also a school that took its athletics extremely seriously. But it's still 2 to 3 standard deviations from the way it was when you were competing at Notre Dame.
No question.
Is there another iteration to come here? Where in the heck can this go?
It's a really good question, and one that I wrestled. I just amuse myself with that debate on and off, and say, okay, it's changed so dramatically since I've been in this business now 34 years deep. I barely recognize it from where it was when I began, and can it possibly change that much? Again, it probably will. I don't know that I can envision what all those changes might be in terms of how we go about what we do in the environment that we operate in. I think most of the dramatic change has got to have happened. I mean, I think we've really, it's become a different enterprise for sure. I think in a very healthy way, we're far more focused on the experience that our students have when they come as an athlete at Purdue, as everybody is around the country these days, making sure that we're providing them the support that they need, where they need it, when they need it, and doing the right things. So that part has come a long way here. It really, in the last 5-6 years, in my opinion, that's really been a focus, and I think an appropriate one. Beyond that, I think as the media world changes, that could be things that shape how our business looks, how this world looks as time goes by. But I can't predict what that might be. I don't think anybody can. I know from a Big Ten perspective, we're extremely well positioned as we sit here today. But again, you can't know that that's going to be the case forever.
Football Performance Complex, which to me is almost the end of the world as we know it, in terms of just what a phenomenal facility it is, and how I can't imagine something being better. But always talk about this, what would be next in football? What's your, south end zone, other focuses? If you were going to look out 3 to 5 years of things that you care to share, what's the next focus, do you think, in terms of what will be next to build football to where you want it to be?
Well, I think the thing that I continue to believe and talk about with our folks is that I think the important thing is that we make progress, is that we just don't throw it in neutral and sit there and say, hey, we're good. Because you're never, once you sort of lose momentum and you sort of come to a stop, it's really hard to restart at that point in time. So I think we need to continue to look for opportunities to make improvements in and around our program. Some of them are in and around Ross-Ade. We want to continue to build that facility into one that people enjoy coming to and have the amenities that folks expect these days. There are some, built-in realities to the place. We're not going to tear it down and build a new one. That's not going to happen. But for me, as I probably people have heard me say this before, making sure we take care of our video elements, improve them in the near term. Maybe some next year, maybe some the following year is what that probably looks like right now, if assuming we can generate the resources to do that, but to really bring those up to date. We have outdated technology by a long shot. We're 10 years, almost 10 years deep, if not more, on our video,
right? Yeah.
And that's once you're a couple years in these days, you're way behind it. So we're behind it there in a big way, and so we're working with folks right now to get a design to make that work. We're also looking at a reimagining of what the south end zone ultimately might look like. There was a plan done at a point in time that had lots of great thinking in it, but it was very maybe a little rich for our blood and maybe a little beyond what would make sense to put on to a 57,000 seat stadium in terms of scope and cost. More importantly, it's a project that had such a price tag on it that I'm not sure I could see it happening in any reasonable time frame. So we're working with architects over these next 6 to 8 months to really relook at that south end zone and look at what the elements are that we really would like to build into that. What are the got-to-haves? What are the aesthetics that would make sense? But to do so in a way that hopefully provides a price tag at the end of the day that we think we can ultimately achieve and have it become a reality in a more near term as opposed to way down the road. So that's definitely on our radar. Then there's some other just flat realities. The pavilion's going to need to be updated at some point.
I believe it's 15 years old.
Yeah, it's a great facility,
Yeah.
but you're going to have to update furnishings and all that. It's going to have to be modernized. The upper bowl of Ross-Ade has got legitimate maintenance issues. I mean, it's supported by steel. Steel doesn't last forever. Steel rusts, and all these things happen. So we've got to deal with that at some point in time, and that is not insignificant. That's millions and millions of dollars that aren't flashy or glamorous, but they're real. I mean, they're a fact of safety and other realities that you've got to deal with at some point. So there's a long list of things that we've got to continue to try and knock off as best we can, and find ways to generate the resources to help us do that.
Is it now, though, the trend towards experience, or is it seat? I'm talking south end zone here.
Yeah.
Do you want things that can build on the experience of being at the event? Do you want potentially multi-use facilities that could be used by other parts of the university? I mean, what do you?
I think we're thinking about all those different things. I do believe that there's a trend as you watch stadiums around the country, whether they be pro college or whatever. There is a trend to build in space that's more sort of gathering space and not traditional thick seating in areas. And so I think an element of that would make sense to me. I think that's something we would want to build in there. We have a big nutrition focus with our athletes, providing a better opportunity for us to provide them with the right kind of nutrition. So building a facility either in that south end zone or somewhere close by, which is a whole other conversation about potential residence hall, that we need to fix that at some point, and sooner rather than later would be my hope. So that would be something we've got to attack either in the south end zone or elsewhere, but have a plan here relatively quickly as to how we're going to do that. Beyond that, there's lots of other elements that come into play that we're evaluating, and again trying to figure out what's a got to have and what's a want or nice to have, and what can we ultimately afford.
Yeah, and that is not it's not growing on trees. That part I know in terms of money, even though things have certainly taken a turn for the better with football.
Yeah.
Is it as simple? And we get asked this question a lot. Mike Bobinski's done a good job as athletic director of Purdue in just over 2 years because he hired the right football coach. But there's a lot of, I mean, is it as simple as fixing football and everything else follows? You've got other very strong programs. How do you look at that in terms of that?
Well, football is a hugely influential part of a program at this level, at the Power 5 level.
Yeah.
Football has got a huge impact on what you do. By its very nature, it requires lots of people, lots of resources, and lots of moving parts, and it takes a lot of attention, and you want to do it well. So clearly getting that right makes a lot of difference. But beyond that, the organization has got to be healthy and strong elsewhere. You talked earlier about our communications and our branding and our marketing and our creative, all of that. If you're not doing that very well, you're not doing a great job of supporting all your programs. But even the football, the large one, football.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the right things from that perspective, you're not giving them the very best chance to be successful. So your whole organization needs to be collaborative, needs to work together towards a common goal of providing our programs with the very best opportunity to succeed. And we talk about that all the time. We're trying to build strength across our organization. We're looking right now, because we've grown and we've added lots of people and we've focused in different areas as to how we make sure we're communicating effectively and making sure people are on the same page and are focused in the right direction, so that people don't just sort of head off and think they're doing the right thing but maybe get off the reservation a little bit. So we're talking about that right now as to how we do that better, because we want to make sure we are providing the greatest sense of sort of coordinated focus and direction so we can be successful.
And again, in a little over 24 months into the job, staffing do you see now that you're kind of where you want to be from an athletic department standpoint? Or still some pieces to fit in, or where do you view that?
There are probably a handful of other pieces to fill in here and there, but I think we've made the big chunk changes at this point, or the larger, the significant changes and adds that we needed to make in order to give ourselves a fighting chance to be successful. I think there are some things where you can always throw more people at it, but I'm not a big believer in that. I think we've got, in most cases right now, enough people to do the things we want to do externally. We've tried to do a better job of providing the best medical and strength and conditioning support, so we've added bodies in those areas, areas that really touch our athletes' experience on a day-in, day-out basis.
Sure.
Where we've added sports psychologists on a full-time basis. We're doing things that I thought we needed to do in today's world to give our kids the best experience, and again, to be competitive with our peers.
A campaign that has been brought to the, and we had a question about this. How was the motion piece selected over the train? I don't know if in terms of, was that part of the branding? Are they still equal parts, or how do you view that? And I don't know how deep in the weeds you get into that.
I think there was a decision made at a point in time that the motion P would be our primary mark, and I think that's the one that plays the best graphically, visually on whether it be on merchandise or soft goods or whatever it might be. It is the most recognizable and identifiable mark that we have, and that will be our primary mark. Now, the train and the other things are still certainly part of our package, but they'll be supplementary and secondary to the motion P.
Only the Strong campaign, too. Tell us about how that came about, and obviously you got help from an agency out of Indianapolis that worked with you on that. But how do you feel like you've integrated that into what you're doing now, and how big a role will that continue to play, do you think?
I think it'll be an important part of what we do going forward, and I like that it provides us sort of an umbrella for all the sports and functions that we have in our department to sort of tuck in under. It's sort of an overarching theme and look and feel that each sport can then tailor to its own purposes and needs. But I like having something that sort of sits on top of it, that sets a general tone for who we are and what we want to be about. And I really like it. I think it was really well executed. Great concept that was developed, with that agency and our folks working together. And the look of it is what Purdue's about. I mean, it's got a strong, powerful look to it, and I think that's who we want to be as a program.
And Mike, Mike only when one of his first press conferences talked about how he likes his country music, but he's also you've also now have are you a gentleman farmer in your new location? But I know I think I've asked that question, but that's a part of your life and your heritage, though,
Yes.
in terms of having that opportunity to have. share with what you want. We're not going to tell everybody where it is,
Sure,
but
sure.
it is a something that you have an opportunity to you have a little bit more land where you live, and that's something that you like.
I do. I love it. I actually love it. I'm just, not 12 minutes from campus,
Yeah.
so we're close by,
You
but
still are, yeah.
we're already out in the farm country and have a really nice wooded lot with a couple acres out front that are farmed right now. I don't do the farming. We've
Yeah.
got somebody that does it for us. I might.
Are you growing? Are you going to
Well, we got a little alfalfa growing
Okay.
out there this year. Last year it was soybeans. This year it's alfalfa. And so I love watching that whole process. I mean, it does kind of bring me back to the old days. And and across the streets, huge cornfields and all. So we're right on the middle of it, which I really enjoy. But it's a great spot.
And it's a great place to ride bikes out that we ride by. We have a route called the Bobinski route. He doesn't know that, but it goes right by his house. But a nice spot from that standpoint. You also, one other fun story that you've had this summer, had an opportunity to do some RV driving
boy.
over. I want to know what got into your head over that, but you said it was a good experience. You at least got a little bit of time to get away, and you went around the Midwest or some areas driving
It was an
RV.
experience, yeah.
Yes.
Bob Martin, who
I love Bob.
a wonderful Purdue grad and football player.
That's correct.
His wife Amy, great people. Bob's the CEO and president of Thor Industries,
right.
and he was nice enough to make an RV available for us to use this summer, and had never done it before. So we had all the first time experiences, other than the horror show experiences. We didn't have anything really go bad, other than landing on a couple of roads where maybe an RV shouldn't have been on. And so I had a little white knuckle driving experience here and there, but it was a great week and a couple days making the rounds around Ohio, West Virginia, down to Southern Virginia, Tennessee, back up through Kentucky and Southern Indiana. It was great. We had a great time, great experiences. Something that I'm glad we did it. It was fun to get away for a little bit.
So if Mike Bobinski hadn't had a career in athletics, you would have driven trucks for a living? Or,
You never know. You never know. I was pretty. That was in my heritage also a little bit.
No doubt. Well, Mike, thanks so much for taking the time. You've got a busy day tomorrow. There's no, obviously, if there's any weather issues or alerts, you can check out. They'll be brought
Sure.
out on PurdueSports.com and so through social media. We're playing ball tomorrow, so to speak.
We're playing football. We do hope for no lightning issues because that just sort of lengthens your day. If it's wet, it's wet. We'll figure it out. Our turf guys do a great job. We'll both play in the same conditions, and we'll hope the Boilermakers come out on top. That's the only objective tomorrow.
All right, Purdue Eastern Michigan tomorrow, noon, Ross-Ade Stadium. It's just a light month of activity, only 4 straight home games. Craziness, but a lot of fun, too, if you're a Purdue sports fan. Mike, thanks again so much. We'll take a short break, bring in Matt Stevens and Brian Newber, who will absolutely tell you everything you need to know about Purdue and Eastern Michigan tomorrow, and we'll do that in